Jake Carter had never seen anything like the Valanthy Palace. The walls were made of something that looked like glass but felt warm to the touch. Light came from everywhere and nowhere at once. The ceiling stretched so high that he could barely see where it ended. Everything was white and silver and purple, and it made him feel very small. He was just a medic. Back on Earth, he had worked in a small hospital in Ohio. He had fixed broken bones and stitched up cuts. He had held the hands of scared patients and told them everything would be okay. When the space program came looking for medical officers, he signed up because he wanted to see the stars. He never expected to end up here, standing in an alien palace, wearing his best uniform, trying not to touch anything. The Valanthy were tall and thin, with skin the color of pale lavender. Their eyes were silver, like polished mirrors, and they rarely blinked. They moved with perfect grace, as if every step was planned 1,000 years ago. They did not smile, they did not frown. Their faces showed nothing at all. Captain Laura Bennett stood beside Jake, her back straight and her eyes forward. She was a strong woman, with short gray hair, and a voice that could silence a room. She had led the crew of the Horizon's Edge for 12 years, and she had brought them safely through more dangers than Jake could count. But even she looked nervous tonight. "Remember," she whispered to Jake. "Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not touch anything. Do not touch anyone. The Valanthy have very strict rules about physical contact. If you touch one of them without permission, they can legally kill you." Jake nodded. He had read the briefing files 100 times. The Valanthy were one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Their technology was thousands of years ahead of humanity's. Their empire stretched across 100 star systems, and they had finally agreed to meet with humans, to discuss the possibility of an alliance. This was the most important moment in human history. Jake was terrified of messing it up. The banquet hall was filled with hundreds of Valanthy nobles. They sat at long tables made of crystal, eating food that Jake could not identify. At the far end of the hall, on a raised platform, sat the royal family. The Empress was the most beautiful and terrifying being Jake had ever seen. She sat perfectly still on her throne, her silver eyes watching everything. Beside her sat her consorts, 3 tall Valanthy males who never spoke, and next to them sat the princess. Princess Lyraveth was young, at least by Valanthy standards. Her skin was a deeper purple than the others, and her eyes held something that looked almost like curiosity. She was the heir to the entire empire, and someday she would rule over billions of lives. Jake tried not to stare at her. He failed. The banquet went on for hours. There were speeches and toasts and ceremonies that Jake did not understand. He stood against the wall with the other human delegates, smiling politely and trying to look like he belonged. His feet hurt. His uniform was too tight. He wanted nothing more than to go back to the ship and sleep. Then the princess stood up. She took 1 step forward, and then she stopped. Her hand went to her chest. Her silver eyes went wide, and then she fell. The sound she made when she hit the floor was soft, almost gentle. But the silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, nobody moved. The entire hall was frozen, hundreds of Valanthy staring at their fallen princess. Then the screaming started. Valanthy guards rushed toward the platform. Medical officers appeared from hidden doors, carrying equipment that glowed with strange light. The Empress rose from her throne, and for the first time, her perfect face showed emotion. It showed fear. Jake pushed forward without thinking. His training took over, the same instincts that had guided him through 1,000 emergencies back on Earth. Someone was hurt. Someone needed help. Nothing else mattered. "Jake, stop." Captain Bennett grabbed his arm. "You cannot interfere. This is not our place." But Jake was already moving. He pushed through the crowd of Valanthy, ignoring their shocked stares. He climbed the steps to the platform, his heart pounding in his chest. The guards raised their weapons, long silver rods that hummed with deadly energy. "Human, stop," one of them commanded. "You will not approach the royal family." Jake ignored him. He dropped to his knees beside the princess. She was dying. He could see it in her face, in the way her breathing had become shallow and fast. Her skin was turning gray, and dark lines were spreading across her arms like cracks in old paint. Poison. Someone had poisoned her. The Valanthy medical officers were scanning her with their devices, but their faces told Jake everything he needed to know. Their technology could not save her. Whatever was killing her was too fast, too strong. "Move aside, human," one of the medical officers said. His voice was cold and flat. "There is nothing you can do. There is nothing anyone can do." Jake looked at the princess. Her eyes found his, and in them he saw something he recognized. He saw the same fear he had seen in hundreds of patients back home. The fear of dying. The fear of being alone. He reached out and took her hand. The reaction was immediate. Every Valanthy in the hall gasped. The guards raised their weapons higher. The Empress stepped forward, her silver eyes blazing with fury and grief. "Human," she shouted, "you dare to touch my daughter? You will die for this." But Jake was not listening. Something strange was happening. Where his skin touched the princess's hand, a soft golden light was beginning to glow. It was warm, like sunlight on a summer day. It spread from his fingers to her arm, flowing through her body like water. The dark lines on her skin began to fade. The gray color disappeared, replaced by healthy purple. Her breathing slowed, became steady and strong. The princess blinked. Once, twice, and then her eyes focused on Jake's face. "What?" she whispered. "Are you?" Jake did not have an answer. He did not understand what was happening. He only knew that the princess was no longer dying. He had touched her, and somehow, impossibly, she had begun to heal. The Empress stared at her daughter. The guards stared at Jake. The entire hall stared at the soft golden light that still glowed between them. And in that moment, everything changed. For Jake, for humanity, for the entire galaxy. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the princess's steady breathing and the soft hum of the golden light. Jake Carter, a simple medic from Ohio, had just done the impossible. He had no idea what would happen next. The golden light faded slowly, like the last rays of sunset disappearing behind a hill. Jake still held the princess's hand, afraid to let go. His heart was beating so fast that he could hear it in his ears. Around him, hundreds of silver eyes stared in complete silence. Princess Lyraveth sat up slowly. She looked down at her arms, where the dark poison lines had been just moments ago. Her skin was smooth and healthy. She touched her own face, her neck, her chest, as if she could not believe she was still alive. "Mother," she said softly, I feel well." The Empress moved forward like a ghost. Her silver eyes were locked on Jake's face, and he could not tell if she wanted to thank him or kill him. Perhaps both. She knelt beside her daughter and placed a hand on her cheek, checking for herself that Lyraveth was truly healed. "This is impossible," the Empress whispered. "The poison was fatal. Our scanners confirmed total cellular collapse. No technology in the known galaxy could have saved her." One of the Valanthy medical officers stepped forward, holding a scanning device. "Permission to examine the human, Your Majesty?" The Empress nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving Jake. The medical officer ran the scanner over Jake's body. The device hummed and beeped, projecting strange symbols into the air. The officer's face, usually so blank and emotionless, showed clear confusion. "He is ordinary," the officer said. "Standard human biology. No genetic modifications. No technological implants. No traces of any known healing compounds. He is simply a human." "Then how?" the Empress demanded. "How did he heal my daughter with nothing but his touch?" Nobody had an answer. Jake finally let go of the princess's hand. His own hands were shaking. He stood up on weak legs and looked at Captain Bennett, who had pushed through the crowd to reach him. Her face was pale, and her eyes were wide with shock. "Jake," she said quietly, "what did you do?" "I do not know," he admitted. I touched her. I wanted to help." And then the light appeared. The princess rose to her feet, moving with the same perfect grace as all Volanthe. But something was different about her now. She was looking at Jake with an expression he had never seen on a Volanthe face before. It almost looked like wonder. "You broke our most sacred law," she said to him. "You touched a member of the royal family without permission. The punishment for this crime is death." Jake's stomach dropped. He had known the rules. He had broken them anyway. And now he would pay the price. "However," the princess continued, "you also saved my life. No one else could have done what you did. Not our doctors. Not our technology. Only you." She turned to her mother. "I ask that this human be spared. Whatever punishment our laws demand, I ask that it be forgotten. He has earned my gratitude. And he has earned my protection." The Empress was silent for a long moment. The entire hall waited, barely breathing. Jake felt like he might pass out. Finally, the Empress spoke. "The human will live. But he will remain here, in the palace, until we understand what happened tonight. No one leaves until we have answers." Captain Bennett stepped forward. "Your Majesty, with respect, Lieutenant Carter is a member of my crew. He is under my command and my protection." The Empress's silver eyes turned cold. "Your protection means nothing here, human. You are guests in my empire. And you will follow my rules. The one called Jake Carter will stay. The rest of you may return to your ship." "I am not leaving him," Bennett said firmly. Jake put a hand on her arm. "Captain, it is okay. I will stay. If they need to study me to understand what happened, then I will let them. This is bigger than me." Bennett looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I will be back for you, Jake. Every day. Do not forget that you are one of us." She turned and walked away, leading the other human delegates out of the hall. Jake watched them go, feeling very alone. The next few days were strange and exhausting. The Volanthe scientists ran every test they could think of. They scanned Jake's body 1,000 times. They took samples of his blood, his hair, his skin. They made him touch objects and animals, and even other Volanthe, trying to recreate the golden light, but nothing worked. No matter what they tried, the light did not appear again. Perhaps it was a one-time event, one scientist suggested. A random occurrence that will never repeat. Or perhaps it only works under specific conditions, another said. The princess was near death. The human's emotional state was heightened. There must be a pattern we are missing. Jake sat in a small room, alone with his thoughts. He did not understand what had happened any more than the Volanthe did. He was just a medic. He fixed broken bones and stitched up cuts. He was not special. He was not magical. He was just Jake. A soft knock came at his door. Before he could answer, it opened, and Princess Lyra Veth stepped inside. She was even more beautiful up close. Her purple skin seemed to glow softly in the dim light. Her silver eyes were warm, not cold like the other Volanthe. She moved gracefully, but there was something almost shy about the way she approached him. "May I sit?" she asked. Jake nodded, too surprised to speak. She sat across from him, folding her hands in her lap. For a moment, she just looked at him, studying his face as if trying to memorize every detail. "I wanted to thank you," she said finally. "Properly. Without the court watching." "You do not need to thank me," Jake said. "I only did what anyone would do." "No," she said softly. "That is not true. Anyone else would have followed the rules. Anyone else would have let me die rather than risk their own life. But you did not hesitate. You reached out to save a stranger, even knowing it might cost you everything." She leaned forward slightly. "Why? Why would you do that for someone you do not know?" Jake thought about the question. He thought about all the patients he had helped over the years. All the frightened faces and trembling hands. He thought about what it meant to be a healer, because that is what humans do. He said simply, "When someone is hurting, we try to help. We cannot always succeed, but we always try." The princess was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. and it was the most beautiful thing Jake had ever seen. "I think," she said, "that your species is far more remarkable than anyone realizes." Jake smiled back. "Maybe you are right." Outside the small room, the Volanthi scientists continued their work, searching for answers that seemed impossible to find. But inside that room, something else was happening, something smaller and quieter, but perhaps just as important. A human and an alien were becoming friends, and that friendship would change everything. 3 weeks passed in the Volanthi Palace. Jake had stopped counting the tests after the first 100. The scientists poked and prodded him every day, searching for something special in his blood, or his bones, or his brain. They never found anything, but they did find something else. Something that changed everything. A young Volanthi historian named Thelmas had been searching through ancient records, looking for any mention of humans in Volanthi history. The two species had met only a handful of times over the centuries. Brief encounters that were barely worth recording, but Thelmas was thorough, and he found something buried deep in the archives. "Your Majesty," he said, kneeling before the Empress in the Great Hall, "I have discovered something remarkable." The Empress sat on her throne, her silver eyes sharp and patient. Princess Lyraveth stood beside her, and Jake stood nearby, surrounded by guards, who no longer seemed quite so hostile. "Speak," the Empress commanded. Thelmas held up a small crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Ancient Volanthi text floated in the air above it, symbols that Jake could not read. "This record is over 8,000 years old," Thelmas explained. "It describes an encounter between a Volanthi exploration ship and a primitive human vessel near the outer rim. The humans were sick, dying from a plague that had swept through their ship. The Volanthi captain made contact to study the disease." He paused, his silver eyes wide with excitement. During the examination, several Volanthi crew members made physical contact with the humans. The record states that those crew members experienced rapid healing of minor injuries they had sustained during the voyage. Cuts closed, bruises faded. One officer who had been suffering from a chronic illness reported feeling better than he had in years. The hall was silent. Jake felt his heart begin to race. The captain dismissed it as coincidence. Thelmas continued. "The encounter was brief, and no one thought to investigate further. But the pattern is there. Your Majesty, whenever humans and Volanthi have touched, healing has occurred." The Empress leaned forward on her throne. "Are you telling me that human touch heals our people?" "Yes, Your Majesty, I believe so." The chief scientist, a tall Volanthi named Corvan, stepped forward with his own data. "We have been analyzing the humans' biological samples for weeks. Alone, they show nothing unusual. But when we combined human cells with Volanthi cells in our laboratory, something extraordinary happened." He projected an image into the air, showing microscopic footage of cells moving and changing. "Human biology produces dozens of compounds that promote healing and reduce damage," Corvan explained. "On Earth, these compounds are ordinary. Every human has them. But to Volanthi cells, they are miraculous. Our immune systems, which normally reject all foreign matter, accept human biological compounds as if they belong there. The human cells essentially teach our cells how to repair themselves faster and more completely." Princess Lyraveth stared at the floating images. "So when Jake touched me, his body's natural healing compounds entered my system and fought the poison?" "Exactly, Your Highness. The golden light we witnessed was likely a visible manifestation of the cellular repair process, amplified by the extreme stress of your condition." The Empress sat back, her face unreadable. "So humans are not magical. They are simply compatible with us." "More than compatible, Your Majesty," Corvan said. "They are uniquely suited to heal us. We have tested human biological compounds against cells from 17 other species. None of them showed any positive effects. Only Volanthi cells respond this way. It is as if humans and Volanthi were designed to fit together." Jake did not know what to say. He was just a medic from Ohio. He had never thought there was anything special about his body or his touch. But apparently, to the Volanthi, he was something close to a miracle, "What does this mean?" he asked quietly. The Empress looked at him, and for the first time, her silver eyes held something that might have been respect. "It means, human, that your species has just become the most valuable ally in the known galaxy." Word spread quickly. Within days, messages were flying across the stars. The Valanthi Empire had discovered that humans could heal their people with nothing but touch. Other species began to pay attention. The Valanthi were powerful, but they were not invincible. Their aggressive immune systems made them resistant to disease, but they also made medical treatment extremely difficult. Valanthi surgery was dangerous and often failed. Valanthi medicine was limited and slow. For thousands of years, they had accepted this as the price of their biological strength. But now there was another option. Humans. Captain Bennett visited Jake every day. As she had promised, she brought news from the horizon's edge and from Earth. The human government was in chaos, trying to understand what this discovery meant. Some leaders saw it as an opportunity. Others saw it as a threat. "There are people back home who want to use this," Bennett told Jake during one of her visits. "They want to trade human healers for Valanthi technology. They see our people as bargaining chips." Jake frowned. "That sounds dangerous." "It is," Bennett agreed. "But it is also complicated. The Valanthi have technology that could solve half the problems on Earth. Clean energy, advanced medicine, faster than light travel. Some people think it is worth the risk." "And what do you think, Captain?" Bennett was quiet for a moment. Then she sighed. "I think that humans have always been at their best when they help others. Not because they expect something in return, but because it is the right thing to do. If we start selling our compassion to the highest bidder, we lose something important about who we are." Jake nodded. He had been thinking the same thing, but not everyone felt that way. Across the galaxy, there were those who saw the human healing ability as a threat to their power. And in the shadows of the Valanthi Palace, a conspiracy was growing. The same people who had poisoned Princess Lyraveth were watching, waiting, planning. They had tried to kill her, to destabilize the royal succession and seize power for themselves. They had failed. But now they had a new target. Jake Carter, the human healer, the symbol of a new alliance that could change everything. If they could eliminate him, if they could prove that humans were dangerous and untrustworthy, they could still achieve their goals. They could break the alliance before it truly began. Late one night, Jake stood on a balcony overlooking the Valanthi capital city. The buildings stretched toward the sky like silver trees, glowing with soft light. It was beautiful, but Jake felt uneasy. He could not shake the feeling that something bad was coming. Princess Lyraveth found him there, standing alone in the darkness. "You cannot sleep either?" she asked. "No," he admitted. "Too much on my mind." She stood beside him, looking out at the city she would someday rule. "My people are afraid," she said softly. "They have been alone for so long, trusting no one but themselves. The idea of depending on humans, of needing you, frightens them." "And what about you?" Jake asked. "Are you afraid?" The princess turned to look at him, her silver eyes reflecting the city lights. "No," she said. "When I look at you, I do not see something to fear. I see something to hope for." Jake smiled. It was nice to hear that. It was nice to feel like he mattered. But somewhere in the darkness below, hidden eyes were watching them, and plans were being made. The storm was coming. Jake just did not know it yet. The peace summit was held in a grand chamber, at the heart of the palace. Representatives from 12 different species had gathered to witness the signing of an alliance between humanity and the Valanthi Empire. It was supposed to be a day of celebration, a new beginning for both species. Jake stood near the back of the chamber, watching the ceremony unfold. He felt out of place among all the diplomats and nobles. He was still just a medic, still just a simple man from Ohio who had accidentally changed the course of history. Captain Bennett stood beside him, her dress uniform perfectly pressed. She had been promoted to admiral for her role in establishing first contact, but she still insisted on being called captain. Old habits died hard. "Nervous?" she asked quietly. "A little," Jake admitted. This feels too big for me. Bennett smiled. You saved the princess's life. You proved that humans have something valuable to offer the galaxy. None of this would be happening without you. That is what worries me, Jake said. I did not ask for any of this. Then, before Bennett could respond, a commotion erupted near the front of the chamber. Voices rose in alarm. Guards began to move. Jake stood on his toes, trying to see what was happening. Princess Lyraveth was standing at the podium, preparing to give a speech. But she had stopped, her silver eyes fixed on something in the crowd. Her face, usually so calm, showed clear fear. "Guards!" she shouted. "There! Stop them!" Everything happened at once. A group of Valanthi near the front of the chamber threw off their ceremonial robes, revealing weapons underneath. They were not silver rods like the palace guards carried. These weapons were black and jagged, designed for one purpose only: killing. The attackers moved fast, faster than Jake had ever seen anyone move. They cut through the guards like they were nothing. Screams filled the chamber as diplomats scrambled for cover. The Empress was pulled away by her protectors, disappearing through a hidden door. But the attackers were not going for the Empress. They were not going for any of the diplomats. They pushed through the chaos, their black weapons raised, heading straight for one target. "Jake, get down!" Bennett shouted, pushing Jake behind her. She pulled a small weapon from her uniform and fired at the nearest attacker. The shot hit, but the Valanthi barely slowed. Their bodies were armored with something that deflected the blast. "Human healers must die," one of the attackers screamed. "Your kind will never corrupt our empire." Jake's mind raced. He was not a soldier. He did not know how to fight. All he knew was how to help people. And right now, that did not seem like enough. 3 attackers broke through the remaining guards. They were only steps away from Jake now. He could see the hatred in their silver eyes, the absolute certainty that what they were doing was right. To them, he was not a person. He was a threat to everything they believed in. The leader raised his weapon, aiming directly at Jake's chest. And then Princess Lyraveth appeared. She moved like lightning, faster than should have been possible. She threw herself between Jake and the weapon just as it fired. The black energy blast hit her in the shoulder, spinning her around. She cried out in pain but did not fall. Instead, she turned to face the attackers, her silver eyes blazing with fury. "You will not touch him," she said, her voice cold as ice. The attackers hesitated. They had not expected this. They had not expected the princess to protect a human with her own body. That hesitation cost them everything. Palace guards poured into the chamber from every direction. The attackers were surrounded in seconds. Some tried to fight. Some tried to flee. None of them escaped. Within minutes, it was over. Jake rushed to Lyraveth's side. She was on her knees now, holding her wounded shoulder. Purple blood seeped through her fingers. Her face was pale with pain, but her eyes were still fierce. "You are hurt," Jake said, reaching for her. "Do not worry about me," she said through gritted teeth. "The wound is not fatal. Let me help." He placed his hands over hers, covering the wound. He closed his eyes and focused on wanting her to be okay. On needing her to be okay. For a long moment, nothing happened. Jake's heart sank. Maybe it only worked once. Maybe he could never do it again. Then the golden light appeared. It was fainter this time, softer, but it was there. It flowed from his hands into her shoulder, and he could feel the damaged tissue beginning to repair itself. The bleeding slowed, then stopped. The wound began to close. Lyraveth watched with wonder as her skin knitted itself back together. When the light faded, the wound was gone. Only a small scar remained. A thin line of lighter purple against her skin. "You saved me again," she whispered. "You saved me first," Jake replied. "Why did you do that? You could have been killed." The princess looked at him, and something in her eyes made Jake's breath catch. It was the same look she had given him that first night, when she woke up and found him holding her hand. Wonder, gratitude, and something else. Something deeper. You gave me back my future, she said softly. I could not let them take yours. Around them, the chamber was in chaos. Guards were securing the attackers. Diplomats were being evacuated. The Empress had returned and was issuing orders in a voice like thunder. But Jake barely noticed any of it. All he could see was Lyraveth's face. All he could feel was her hand finding his. The investigation began immediately. The attackers were members of a faction called the Pure Blood. Valanthy extremists who believed their species should remain isolated from all others. They had been the ones who poisoned Lyraveth, hoping to create chaos and seize power. When that failed, they had turned their attention to Jake, hoping to destroy the alliance before it could begin, but they had failed again. And this time, everyone had seen it. The images spread across the galaxy within hours. The princess of the Valanthy Empire, shielding a human with her own body. The human healer, saving her life with nothing but his touch. It was a powerful symbol, more powerful than any treaty or agreement. This changes things, Captain Bennett said later that night, as she and Jake sat in his quarters. Before today, some people saw the alliance as a business deal. Technology for healers. But what you two did, what everyone saw, that was something else entirely. What was it? Jake asked. Bennett smiled. It was proof that humans and Valanthy can care about each other. Not because it benefits us, but because we genuinely matter to each other. That is worth more than all the technology in the galaxy. Jake thought about Lyraveth, about the way she had looked at him as the golden light faded. He thought about what she had said. You gave me back my future. I could not let them take yours. Maybe Bennett was right. Maybe this was about more than alliances and treaties. Maybe it was about something simpler and more important. Maybe it was about two people, from different worlds, choosing to protect each other. And maybe that was the most human thing of all. The trial of the Pure Blood faction lasted 3 days. The evidence against them was overwhelming. They had poisoned the princess. They had attacked the peace summit. They had tried to murder diplomats from a dozen different species. There was no defense, no excuse, no way to escape justice. The leader of the faction, a high-ranking noble named Vor then, stood before the Empress in chains. His silver eyes, once proud and cold, were empty now. He had believed so completely that he was right, that protecting Valanthy purity was worth any crime. And now he had lost everything. You tried to destroy my daughter, the Empress said, her voice echoing through the silent hall. You tried to destroy an alliance that could have brought peace and prosperity to our empire. You killed innocent people in the name of fear and hatred. Do you have anything to say for yourself? 7. Vor then lifted his head. There was no regret in his face, no shame, only bitter defiance. I tried to save us, he said. The humans will corrupt us. They will make us weak. They will destroy everything we have built. History will prove me right. The Empress stared at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head slowly. History will forget you, she said. You will be remembered as nothing more than a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when fear overcomes reason. Take him away. The guards dragged Vor then from the hall. He did not resist. He knew his fate was sealed. After the trial, Jake walked through the palace gardens with Princess Lyraveth. The gardens were beautiful, filled with plants that glowed softly in colors he had never seen before. Strange insects flew between the flowers, humming songs that were almost like music. It is over, Lyraveth said softly. The Pure Blood faction is broken. Their leaders are imprisoned. Their followers have scattered. Do you think there will be others? Jake asked. Other groups who feel the same way? Other groups who feel the same way? Probably, she admitted. Change is frightening. There will always be those who resist it. But what happened at the summit showed everyone the truth. Humans are not here to corrupt us. You are here to help us. And some of us, at least, are willing to help you too. She touched the small scar on her shoulder, the only reminder of the wound that had nearly killed her. This scar will stay with me forever. And whenever I look at it, I will remember what you did for me. What we did for each other." Jake smiled. He had never expected to become friends with an alien princess. But life had a way of surprising you. The alliance between humanity and the Valanthy Empire was signed the following week. The ceremony was smaller than the original summit, more private. Only those who truly needed to be there were present, but it was no less meaningful. The Empress herself approached Jake after the signing. She was still terrifying, still impossibly elegant and cold. But there was something different in her eyes now. Something that might have been gratitude. "You have changed everything, human," she said. "Before you came, we thought we knew what strength meant. We thought it meant standing alone, needing no one, trusting nothing but ourselves. But you showed us a different kind of strength." "What kind is that, Your Majesty?" Jake asked. "The strength to reach out," she said. "The strength to help a stranger, even when the rules say you should not. The strength to care about someone different from yourself." She paused. "We have much to learn from your species, Jake Carter. I hope you will teach us." Jake bowed his head. "I will do my best, Your Majesty." News of the alliance spread across the galaxy. Other species, who had watched from a distance, began to pay attention. The Valanthy were not the only ones who struggled with illness and injury. Many species had bodies that were difficult to heal, immune systems that fought against medical treatment. And now they knew about humans. Within months, requests began arriving from across the stars. The Keth Confederation, whose people suffered from a degenerative bone disease. The Mural Republic, whose soldiers could not recover from battle wounds. The Thousand Moons Alliance, whose children were born with organs that failed too soon. They all wanted the same thing. They wanted human healers. The human government struggled to respond. They did not have enough doctors, enough medics, enough trained professionals to meet the demand. And there were still those who worried about sending their people into unknown dangers, into alien worlds where they might not be safe. But volunteers stepped forward anyway. Doctors and nurses, paramedics and caregivers. Ordinary people who wanted to help, who believed that compassion should not stop at the borders of their own world. Jake became the first official human ambassador to the Valanthy Empire. It was a fancy title that mostly meant he spent his days training new healers and helping Valanthy scientists understand human biology. He missed his old life sometimes, missed the simple work of fixing broken bones and stitching up cuts. But he knew that what he was doing now was important. He was building a bridge between two worlds, and that bridge would change everything. Years passed. The alliance between humans and Valanthy grew stronger. Other species joined, one by one. Drawn by the promise of healing and hope, the galaxy, which had been divided for so long by fear and suspicion, began to come together. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that no one had expected. Humans were not special because of their technology. They were not special because of their weapons or their intelligence or their strength. They were special because of something simpler, something more profound. They cared. They reached out to help strangers, even when it was dangerous. They took risks for people they had never met. They believed that compassion was not a weakness, but a strength. The greatest strength of all. Jake Carter, the medic from Ohio, never forgot where he came from. He visited Earth whenever he could, walking through the streets of his hometown. Remembering what it felt like to be ordinary, he knew that he was not a hero. He was just a man who had done what anyone should have done. But maybe that was the point. Maybe being human was not about being exceptional. Maybe it was about doing the right thing, even when it was hard. Maybe it was about touching the hand of a dying stranger and refusing to let go. Princess Lyraveth, who had become Empress herself, often thought about that night in the banquet hall. She thought about the young human medic who had broken every rule to save her life. She thought about the golden light and the warmth of his hands. "What are you?" she had asked him that night. And now, after all these years, she finally understood the answer. He was human, and that was enough. That was everything.